For children of elderly parents, it's sometimes hard to know when and how much to take over. One family clearly saw it was time to take over their parents' finances when 90-year-old Maury Branch went into his local jeweler for a watch battery and came out with over a $20,000 bracelet. His daughter says when she discovered the purchase, she was shocked.
Being an economics professor, he tended to be quite frugal in his life, and I just knew that he would absolutely never do that.
Carol says once she realized Maury's simple errand turned into a $20,000 mistake, she came down here to La Jolla to try and fix the problem. Carol says her father did not recognize the actual cost of the bracelet and tried to work with Curtis Goff, partial owner of La Jolla Jeweler, to get a refund.
We tried to mitigate the situation by letting them know that they can come in and we'll try to sell it for them.
Carol wanted a full refund, and Curtis says he is unwilling to give in to her demands because,
sometimes kids do abuse their parents, and I think that they're getting abused. Their parents are getting abused by their children. That's what we've seen all along.
Carol says she's doing the best she can for her parents and is only trying to secure their financial well-being. A dispute between neighbors has left Patty Miller's boat unupholstered and docked for the past 3 years.
I don't know why he thought he could take our money and not do the job he was promised us to do.
When she and her late husband Ed first bought the boat, they didn't realize it would become an extension of their living room. Most nights, Patty says she could find Ed outside.
Every evening after dinner, he would go down and sit and watch for the sunset.
She says the boat was a way to bring their family together.
He would let the little girls, the great-granddaughters, they loved to go on the boat with Papa because he let them drive.
As the seats became worn, Patty thought she'd get them reupholstered for her husband.
I was getting old, and I thought it would be so nice for him, but he never got to see it.
Nearby neighbor Dan Swanson charged Patty a total of $4,000, which she thought was a little steep.
I said, yes, it's really nice. He's a neighbor. Let's help out the neighbors. And
she said Dan wasn't as neighborly. He promised to finish the job, but never did.
And he kept telling us, oh, it's just a few more days, just another week.
In Ed's final days, he worried about the unfinished boat, putting his daughter Cindy in a tough spot.
One of the final things I said to him was that the boat was okay, and I kind of lied to my dad while he was dying. It's not fun.
Dan Swanson would not speak on camera, but promised to have the job done within the next 2 weeks. High school students don't always have a specific goal in mind, but thanks to the partnership between Cristo Rey High School and businesses such as the Ideal Group, Jose Perez is on the fast track to success.
I've been working here for the past 2 summers.
Before he started with Ideal Group, Jose wasn't giving his future much thought.
And I said, this kid is going to be trouble.
But Amanda Schmidtke, the executive admin and marketing director, gave him a chance anyway.
It keeps me from doing bad things, getting out of trouble.
Now Jose does everything from working in the shop to filing.
Last semester was a night and day difference in Jose. He did really well in school.
Jose won't be slicing posts forever.
Be the first person to go to college, and it already motivates me to do better.
Amanda says she's glad Ideal Group was able to help him get his start. The Sacred Heart graveyard is lined with tombstones, but one grave still lies unmarked. For 2.5 years, a Redford family mourned over an unmarked gravesite while they waited for Sherry Sotheby's tombstone to be delivered.
It not take 2.5 years. I could have chiseled it out in 2.5 years myself.
Until now, this was the only marker identifying where Sherry Sotheby lays. Her family says she won't be able to rest in peace until the tombstone is placed.
I want the kids to have closure. I want them to be able to come out here and come to her grave and not have the extra grief of not having her marked.
Today, Patty got her wish. David Blake is a partial owner of the Simpson Granite. He personally delivered the tombstone this afternoon.
We apologize. This is not the way we do business, and this is not the way we like to treat our families.
He says Simpson Granite has been serving families for over 90 years.
We will not ever make this mistake again.
David says the company has revised the way they place delivery orders. The new method, he says, will ensure no other family will feel that their loved one had been forgotten.
But the last thing everybody should be able to do is have a gravestone.
Soon-to-be newlyweds, Brian and Andrea found a home they thought would be a great place to spend their first year of marriage.
We were excited because this place is really close to my parents, so it's close to family, it's got a pool, it's got laundry facilities. It just kind of seemed like the perfect setup for, first year of marriage.
Brian Thomas says when they first looked at the apartment, he and his fiancée smelled smoke, but were told it would subside after the unit was cleaned and painted.
Well, me being my first apartment too, I didn't know better. I was like, oh, okay, well, if they say so, then, I'll just believe them, so.
But the Belleville couple says the smell never went away, and they spotted smoke residue.
Found it all over the cabinets, it was all over the walls, it was in the bathroom, on the shower stall, on our door wall, everywhere.
The smell of smoke in Brian's old apartment was so bad it was giving his fiancée migraines. But the problem is, to break the lease costs over $1,000.
Cigarette smoke is definitely something that is a huge trigger for migraines.
When Brian took their concerns to the leasing office, he was told there was nothing they could do.
We're hoping that we can move out of the apartment without having to pay, the fees that come with breaking the lease.
Edward Rose and Sons manages the Westlake complex and did not want to speak on camera. The company did tell us they are not planning on waiving those fees.
They felt that strongly that the smoke was strong enough that it became inhabitable. I would tell them not to pay the rent, and that if they got sued, they'd have an excellent defense.
We spoke with an attorney who said the couple would have the stronger case. Pet owners love their animals like family and often spoil them like they would their own children.
Beginning, my dogs are like kids, and I love to spoil my kids, so every time I would go to the store, I would come home with a different toy of some sort.
One estimate says pet owners like Dr. Mark Shark spent $52 billion in 2012 on care for their pets. A portion of that is spent on toys and snacks, but picking the wrong toy can be hazardous.
We got what was marketed to me at the pet store as the safest toy for dogs.
But after months of stress with a sick dog, Mark found out the hard way that what's being marketed isn't always the safest.
Really tapered off what he was eating. Wouldn't eat a whole lot. Kept wanting to, vomit. He kept spitting up bile.
Mark tried everything from changing Jake's diet to numerous doctor visits. Finally, a doctor at the ER found an obstruction in Jake's stomach through an ultrasound and took him in for emergency surgery.
When we pulled that out, we found that it was a cloth toy that he had eaten probably months before.
Dr. Kyle Kerstetter says the toy was about 3 feet long.
Supposedly being the safest toy, I almost killed my dog.
After hearing about Jake's situation, we wanted to ask an expert about which treats are safe and which could be harmful.
Dogs can choke on anything that they can put in their mouths, and that's the biggest challenge with dogs.
Dr. Jim Whitehead says matching the size of the toy to the size of the dog is the best way to prevent injury caused by choking or swallowing. Dr. Whitehead also warns against jerky treats from China.
We don't understand exactly what chemicals are making these dogs sick, but there have been reports of somewhere between around 900 to 1,000 specific cases of dogs that have been poisoned by these treats that are originating in China.
A spokesperson with Wagon Train, maker of chicken jerky treats, says there's no clear evidence that the treats made all those dogs sick.
Until we have further evidence that proves or disproves that there is a link with those chicken treats, I would avoid them.
As we've all heard, CMU opened its event center today, which created new opportunities to bring in revenue. The design of the arena is a bowl shape, which gives a lot more space for advertisements, and a new loft was built for the president and his guests. The loft is expected to eventually be rented out by businesses. The new concession stand is being named after one of its main contributors, and the arena will be named after the McGurk family for their contributions. Now let's take a look at today's closing stock market numbers. The Federal Reserve announced a smaller than expected stimulus package, and stocks took a major hit because of it. This morning, the Dow Jones was down 130 points, a dramatic decrease from Tuesday. The Nasdaq was down 15 points. Hopefully things have turned around. Let's take a look at the closing stock market numbers. According to a survey done by Wayne State University, Michiganders support a graduated tax plan opposed to a flat income tax. A graduated tax plan means the more an individual earns, the more taxes the individual pays. Michiganders feel this, along with fee increases and budget cuts, will help the economy get back on track. However, according to the survey, the people of Michigan do not want to see budget cuts in their public sector. Few results came from the G20 meeting in Seoul last week. Industrialized countries turned their attention inward, focusing on their own economic issues. Other leading economic leaders like China, India, and Brazil have fared quite well after the crisis and are not enthusiastic about helping American efforts to control Chinese currency. One thing China is interested in is General Motors. Two of the banks expected to attend GM's public offering this Thursday are Industrial and Commercial Bank of China and China International Capital Corp. China is planning on purchasing around 1% of the stock, worth at least $500 million. This is making some critics concerned because if the government no longer owns the company, it is not obligated to repay its debts to taxpayers. Chairman Ed Whitaker said, "We want the government out, period." The stock offering will reduce the government's stake in GM from 61% to 43%. The Greek government has been talking to China about allowing Chinese shipping giant COSCO to run a container port off the southern coast of Crete. This is unpopular among the public because the coast is where the fishermen dock their boats. The port would economically be good for Greece as a whole, but would hurt the fishing industry. Ken Feinberg took over BP 5 weeks ago and is already being criticized. 25,000 claims still go unpaid. Feinberg says this is due to proximity, and claims from Florida are not BP's responsibility. Feinberg promised 48-hour emergency compensation for up to 6 months of lost wages to anyone whose personal business was dramatically impacted. The compensation has not yet been paid. The Small Business Job Act of 2010 is stimulating growth in Michigan. Lindsay and Brian Conan of Bay City were able to open a chocolate shop, Lindsay's Truffles. Lindsay is glad the local bank was willing to give them a loan and make their dreams a reality. Other businesses are hopeful the act will give them the same opportunity. Small businesses seem to be doing well. Let's see how big business is doing. Here's a look at the numbers.